coming back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, we now want to talk about the Boston Celtics, who took Game 3 to be able to retake the series lead. I feel like a lot of people, for the most part, aren't necessarily thinking that the Celtics... I mean, I don't know. We of course have Garrison, who joined us on the podcast last week, said that Cleveland could make a little bit of a sneaky run here at the Celtics. I feel like for the most part, though, the consensus is that the Celtics should be able to take care of business in this series. The sportsbooks definitely back that idea up. On DraftKings right now, the Celtics are minus 8,000 favorites. Now, that being said, I would not be shocked if the Cavaliers were able to take another game out of this series. I had Celtics in 5 coming into this, but this Cavaliers team I do think is a little bit better than I gave them credit for, and I think that maybe to some degree as well the Celtics are missing Porzingis a little bit more than I was expecting, going out there and running Al Horford 39 minutes at his age. I love Al Horford as a Celtics fan from the bottom of my heart, but it was a little bit painful at some points during Saturday's game where it was just clear that at this point in his career, he is not able to necessarily keep up, and the fact that he's running around so much, especially on defense. Donovan Mitchell is going out of his way to get these matchups against Horford, get him switched onto. That's where a handful of Mitchell's three-point barrage came from, where he was just incredible. Once again, Mitchell is, but it's really to no surprise. We're just used to this at this point. But then it seemed like almost the fatigue of that defensive side alone sort of led to tired arms, tired legs on the offensive side, where he's standing at the three-point line, but Evan Mobley isn't even respecting his shot. He's camped out in the post and just making life incredibly difficult for any Celtics players that are trying to drive at the rim. And Al got some, looks on the outside, but 0 of 6 from 3, 1 of 7 from the field as a whole. And again, Horford is a great backup big and a true veteran for this team, but in general, we are seeing that this team cannot win a championship in my eyes without Kristaps Porzingis. And that is not necessarily, the Celtics are still an incredibly talented team, and because of that, they should have relatively little problems closing out Cleveland here. And I think that even with all the injuries the Knicks are dealing with now, sort of selfishly, I would love to see the Porzingis versus Knicks playoff atmosphere. I feel like that would be something that would be very charged up and just very funny to see. Knicks fans always had a little bit of a contentious relationship with Porzingis, but also loved him at a certain point as well. So I feel like that would be really good viewing there. But, I do think the Celtics, because of all the injuries the Knicks are dealing with, would be able to make it to the finals even without Porzingis. Now, there have been some reports that the Cavs and Celtics both may be expecting to see Porzingis. I believe the clip that I saw was from this morning, that he has returned to on-court exercises with the Celtics, so it could be sooner rather than later that we see him, but I'm sure the Celtics are also not going to rush him back whatsoever. But ultimately here for the Celtics, in terms of have they answered the questions in terms of the concern, I don't know if they necessarily have. It might just also be the reality of the situation, where as much as it's great seeing Jayson Tatum score 33 points and, look to play a better offensive game. Now, the three-point shooting, I'll still never get over it necessarily in terms of his love for those step-back shots and the followays that he takes in the mid-range. Shot selection is still very much a conversation with him, but I also don't think that they need him to go out and do what Jalen Brunson or Anthony Edwards or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander have done, where they have this really good team. And again, the comments, I talked about this last week, the comments he made after Game 2 talking about, how can we be a super team if we don't win any awards, just felt like a very strange comment to make and almost disappointing, I would argue as well. The fact that That's his concerns, his awards after they looked terrible in a loss to a team that they absolutely should have beaten at home. They're 500 in the postseason over the past couple of years. It was definitely the wrong time if you're Tatum in that situation. But again, ultimately, I don't think that Tatum does need to go out and score 30 points per game. He's doing a great job still defensively. He is far and away their best rebounder, and you can see that there's a legitimate drive for him to do so, especially considering the fact that there is no Porzingis, who, even when he's in, isn't necessarily an elite rebounder, but Al Horford is the one sort of playing the five for them, and he's just not going to be able to match up to some of these taller opponents, and specifically Evan Mobley, who sort of, if we want to shift over to the Cavaliers side of this briefly, Mobley is somebody that just really, I don't know how to feel about him fully, because I do really believe in him, the player, but it's at this point, it is a little bit of a question of what direction is he going to go here. Is he going to develop into the paint presence that it seemed like he could have a little bit of an interior force to him, but he gets out physicaled a lot, it feels like, and that is something that we're definitely seeing in this Celtics series, where Al, for as much smaller as he is, I believe it was against Al Horford, but he's trying to back him down and just moving absolutely nowhere, and ends up getting called for an offensive 3-second violation because he had nowhere to go, because he was unable to move his defender. And so it's that, or if you're not going to be that, because we already know he has the defense on locks, which is, even still, it feels like at times, I mean, we saw Drew Holiday sort of definitely bounce back in a big way in this game, and a lot of what he was doing was actually attacking Mobley on these drives in the paint. So that was at least, notable. Now, Mobley can't do everything from a defensive perspective, as much as we have to give all the flowers to Donovan Mitchell for the offensive performance. Defensively, he is definitely, and he has to carry a very large load offensively right now, but defensively, he absolutely gets taken advantage of. At least he currently is. Now, call it fatigue, call it a skill issue, you tell me, but one way or another, he hasn't been great, and it's not like Darius Garland is much better from that same perspective, where he once again has another little bit of an underwhelming performance. But I want to finish on Mobley, because again, my point is, I want to either see him become that inside guy, the Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan. I'm not saying quite to the careers of that, but having that two-way ability of being able to make opponents feel you on the inside in the paint, or to be able to stretch it out with a three-point shot. He's at least sort of flirted with the idea of trying to expand his range. It just hasn't necessarily worked up to this point. But like I mentioned, Garland, again, another pretty disappointing performance from him. 6 of 15 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. There would definitely be real, and I've been talking about this since even before the season started, that the Cavaliers were eventually going to need to make some type of a move in terms of shaking up their roster between the Mitchell and Garland combo and the Allen and Mobley combo, and it seems like they're going to have to pick 2 of those players moving forward. But if it weren't for the fact that there was so much speculation about the idea of whether or not Donovan Mitchell would be willing to re-sign in Cleveland, Darius Garland would be in trade rumors, I think, just as much as I was sort of referring to with Josh Giddey earlier in the show, where I just feel like, this has been a disappointing look for him. Now, we know that there is plenty of potential with him. We've seen him on an all-star team, and there is something there, but maybe it's playing off ball as much as he is because Donovan Mitchell is having to carry the load. I'm not sure, but Cavaliers definitely have some moves to make in the offseason before they can be considered a true finals contender, at least in my eyes. Now, we'll see how the rest of this postseason plays out. Celtics right now on ESPN Bet are 8.5-point favorites. that's the thing with the Celtics, is they are overvalued every single time in every game, not just postseason games, where it's almost impossible to bet on the Celtics because of the fact that they get so much credit from Vegas and such that I wouldn't be shocked if the Cavaliers were able to pull off the win tonight. Now, I just think that the Celtics are, top to bottom, a better team than the Cavaliers, so I'm not going to pick against them. I'm just saying there is a level of, maybe it's even the immaturity of the Celtics as well, not being able to close this out. But if I'm the Celtics, I'm trying to end this series ASAP and move on. But let me know what your thoughts are. We're going to be taking our final break here. Done a lot of basketball today, and I want to sort of switch gears a little bit. Had a pretty exciting MLB debut with Paul Skeens over the weekend, so I want to dive into that. So stick with us, and we will be right back.